All right, welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Contractor. You know, insurance work is never fun, and it's usually happens when it's inconvenient, it's not planned, and it's just a pain in the rear end. And that's why it's important whenever that does happen, you have someone you can trust to call upon. So that's why I wanted to bring my friend Gina Hicks in today with 24 restoration specialists. And we're going to talk today about some tricks and tips and some good ideas on how to handle that situation whenever it comes up. So Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So I know you're well networked in, especially in Katy, you're well networked in the GHBA here, the Greater Houston Builders Association, and with BNI. But for those of people out there who have not met you, who is Gina Hicks?
Thank you. So, yes, I'm in all those organizations. I really love serving the community and connecting people. That's probably something I'm the most passionate about, is just being a resource and connecting people. And so background is I'm a mom of three, and so 3 elementary kids. So we're at the sports fields when I'm not working, or riding horses or doing that work, volunteering at the rodeo. My husband and I have been on a committee for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
So always kind of involved in a variety of different things. And so I previously was in nonprofit work. My husband and I owned an IT business for 11 years. But then, things changed with COVID, and the way people work changed. And I had the opportunity just post kind of shortly after all of that to partner at or join my best friend's company with 24/7 restoration specialists and really be an advocate for them and help educate people on their services, connect with people as trusted partners, and so that we can serve the community in times of need.
Excellent. So that's a good segue into 24/7 restoration specialist. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, absolutely. So 24/7 restoration specialist owners are Michael McClure and David Daniels, and they were friends for a real long time. Mike has owned, I think, 7 different businesses.
Oh, wow.
Where from multi-family housing to storage facilities to tutoring business. And David was a custom home builder for 20 years. And so they're both graduates of Texas A&M, engineer degrees. And so Dave was building custom homes for 15, 20 years, has served in the GHBA on all the different boards and been president of different councils, things like that. But after 6 hurricanes, he had a warehouse full of equipment that Mike, who has been an entrepreneur and businessman, said, hey, you need to be using this equipment on the daily basis, serving people's needs, and not just when we have a hurricane or a flood or an emergency. So they put their heads together and formed 24/7 Restoration Specialists December of 2020 to open in the spring, April of 2021.
Oh, wow. So only a couple of years then.
Only been 3 years now.
Wow.
And however, we had the great freeze in February of 2021. Thankfully, they had certifications, they had business documents, website, all that in place to just hit a switch and open the doors. And because of Dave's background in home building and serving clients through storms, he immediately had tons of calls, and we were able to serve over 30 homes that first month of opening our company. So I got the call that first week that they opened up and said, I need you to come join our team. And it was worked out with other things going on. I was in the middle of a city council campaign, but they were very gracious to work with that. And so I started with the company when they opened their doors, and I'm real excited to grow with them.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. It's amazing. Gosh, my company is just maybe just a year older, and I feel like you guys are so much more mature than my company. It's like you guys. I thought you guys had been around for a very long time, but it just proves that David and I forgot Mike. Mike. It just proves the level of experience and entrepreneurship and the professionalism behind them, because it comes across as you guys have been around for a long time.
Right. So and Dave has been doing restoration services for a long time as a construction company. I know when my parents had a fire, they had an attic fire in Katy back in 2013. It was the kind of a what do we do? Who do we call? Who's going
Yeah.
to clean up this mess? Who's going to rebuild this house? And so I'm like, let me call my friend Dave. And he'd actually never done a fire. But he's like, I will figure it out. And he was the liaison for my parents with their insurance carrier. And so I had that personal experience going in, that he, rebuilt my parents' home, helped them with their whole insurance claim, made sure everything was documented. And from that, I mean, that was 9 years ago. From then, really grew in his knowledge of the industry and how to help homeowners when they are rebuilding after a disaster, to make sure that it's done well, number one, but proper documentation and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. The thing about this type of work is, when, like for my company, we do more kitchen, bathroom remodels. It's planned out. People save their money. They have a vision. They're excited about it. But when it comes to restoration work, it's like, oh crap, this happened. Now what do I do? Right. And so the homeowners got a different bit of a mindset, and it's a different challenge to work through. So it's a different model for sure. Yeah. So, not all restoration companies are created equal, and they don't operate the same way. I know back when I was doing some work, I know there's something called program work, and I know some companies work based on program work and some companies do not. I know your company does not. Can you speak to a little bit of a difference between the two and what program work actually is?
Yeah, definitely. And so there are pros and cons of it. So there is what's called program work that carriers participate in, and it comes through a third party, so Contractor Connection or some of these other third parties that have service level agreements with the carriers. And the pros of that is the response time. Someone is going to be out there, hour or two. We have the same goal for the response time, but it's a guarantee. And actually they get dinged from the program if they're not responding at a certain time. The job's going to get started immediately, and the homeowner really lets the program contractor deal with the insurance fully. And so they don't really get involved in it. Some people just would rather be hands off and say, just deal with my insurance. So that when your insurance company sends out a program provider or contractor, then it's a little bit more, there's service level agreements, there's already pre-negotiated rates, all of that. So there's a little bit less guesswork in that. However, you will get someone immediately. Can't promise the service, the level of expertise of the person you're going to get. Sometimes you could, have a great project manager that comes out or someone that onboards really well. But we've also heard from clients that, this person came out and they told me this, and they told me it'd be like $2,000 and now it's $20,000. So you get some of those low estimates because they're like, oh, we'll just work this out with the insurance later, or we'll just supplement later. Or, and it just leaves the homeowner it's not transparent. Sometimes it's not honest. Other times it could work great. You just kind of don't know. And so it's a little bit of a risk you're taking there. And the project managers are just used to working with the insurance company. And so sometimes the client is left out of that communication is what I've seen before. And so I had a friend who she was telling me about her experience, and she's like, I guess he and the adjuster decided to save my wood floors and not demo them and use these mats, but it costs so much more. And they were trying to save on the rebuild side and push more money on the mitigation side. And so she's like, had I known, so just leave some of that communication out of there. That's what we found. So we looked into program work. Another great thing for the contractors is it keeps their people busy. However, I talked with one recently and he said, 90% of our work come from program jobs, 20% of our profit. And so because of that pre-negotiated rates, it's keeping their people busy. They're able to have lots of trucks, lots of technicians, but the quality sometimes can be at risk. So what we've decided, our passion is to serve clients well. And so we work directly for the client or the property owner, and we will do the same standard the standards of cleaning and restoration that we would if it's a self-pay client or if it's an insurance client. We're going to do the matter report. We're going to do the documentation. We're going to do the exactimate scope. But our work authorization will be with the client directly, and they will get everything needed to submit to their insurance company for their claim to be indemnified for their loss. But we don't always know what their coverage is. We don't know what endorsements they might have, if they have seepage and leakage, or if they have a max 25 grand on water loss. We saw that one recently with a nationwide client. And so we can't interpret that coverage.
Sure.
However, we absolutely will meet their adjuster on site to go over the scope of the work. We will have a phone call with their adjuster or with the claims department if they have questions regarding the work that was performed, to be an advocate for the client to their claims department and their carrier.
That's the word I like, is being an advocate for them. Because one thing, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted by anyone who's listening, but with program work, sometimes you kind of wonder, like, okay, where's the loyalty of the company? Because the program work gives them the business, so are they more loyal to them, or are they more loyal to the customer? And really, you and I see eye to eye on this. It's really, we're working for the customer. We got to look out for their best interest because we're the experts. We need to look out for them, So I really like how you guys operate.
Thank you.
With that, so I think, nobody knows when something's going to happen. They're not going to know when the fire's going to happen. They're not going to know when the roof is going to, come off in the windstorm. So it's really important for those planners out there, even if you don't plan, know who you're going to call if something were to happen. Don't allow someone else to make that decision for you, because you don't know who you're going to get. And like what you're saying, you could get someone who's not experienced. But if you vet out your contractors ahead of time, you know who you're going to call, then you have a peace of mind. You already have someone you can trust, right? So, but not everyone's going to do that, of course. So what are some common issues that you see that have caused the need for remediation and restoration?
Yeah. So majority of our calls are from pipe breaks, appliance overflow. Sometimes people have done a remodel and a contractor even maybe put a nail through a copper pipe, and it was slow leak that then finally busted when they were out of town on vacation, of course, because that's always when that happens. We've seen I had a supply line break in my bathroom. So I recently went through that. Poor plumbing, we had a toilet overflow recently, and it was just a result of not maintaining a toilet. It was just, oh yeah, we knew it kind of had some problems. We knew there was a little bit of leaking on the bottom. It wasn't sealed. It wasn't set correctly. The seals were damaged. Or another one is people who have had a problem, didn't remediate, just kind of dried it with towels or maybe a fan. They didn't remediate. And then the problem got worse inside the walls or underneath the floors or things like that. And so we've also seen that before, where people kind of did a DIY cleanup, and then all of a sudden their really expensive wood floors are leaking, and it's kind of oh no, you didn't pop your baseboards, you didn't push air underneath. This could have been prevented had you called a professional company to come and handle it immediately.
What kind of things can homeowners do to prevent things like this from happening? I mean, you can't prevent everything, but are there certain things they could do to prevent all this from happening?
Yeah, I mean, definitely hot water heaters are also another big thing. And so having your hot water heater maintained, making sure your roof is, maintenance checked, having an inspection done on it. Roof leaks is another one where we've seen it kind of come down through the walls of the master bathroom or things like that. Then also your AC condensate lines, your appliances, making sure that something isn't leaking. Water filtration systems are another. Wine fridges, kegerators, some of those that are just kind of not your typical appliances that are put into a home afterwards or done with a remodel of, this would be cool to have, but making sure they're connected properly and with quality materials.
Excellent. Yeah. You mentioned the roof. I had to get my roof done back back in May. We had a windstorm, and I went outside and my shingles were just flying all over the place. I'm like, oh man. So I'm like, well, I've got insurance, but I had no idea what my deductible was. And I'm like,
especially on roofs.
yeah, it was horrible. So as you were talking, I'm like, all right, I got to let people know that make sure you know what your deductibles are. And that way you're kind of prepared for it, like if your roof is 10, 15 years old, have that deductible kind of ready on the side, because when the windstorms do come, or, rain comes or whatever, that roof is going to show its age. And, you don't want to be caught by surprise, which we were. We were actually trying to, we were going to buy a generator for our house, like a whole house generator connected to the natural gas. And we're getting ready to do that, pull the trigger on that decision, then our roof goes away. So like, oh boy, put the generator on hold for now. Yeah. So we survived the winter without the generator. So we're good this year. We'll get it next year.
Yes. And it's important to know your deductible, because not everything you need to call the claims department. And so kind of one thing an agent told me one time was, a zero claim paid is a zero claim made. And it just kind of puts a black eye on your policy that they look at renewals, or if you're changing carriers, things like that. Sure. And so we recently the roof leak that resulted in a master bath remodel, pretty much. And they didn't make a claim on their insurance. It was a home over here in Memorial. The deductible was really high. And so people, even if it's a 1% deductible on, the values of homes these days, it's, or sometimes we see 2%. The people need to know their deductible so that they know who to call first, because it's not always the claims department.
Yeah. So when somebody decides not to submit a claim, what are some of the deciding factors when they make that decision?
I think it's the scope of work, and also the amount of time that there has been since the damage happened. If you catch something immediately, and you're able to get the water off the floors, you just need, a couple days of drying. You need some just basic sheetrock baseboard repair work done. Many times that's going to be below your deductible, or something that it doesn't make sense to file your claim. And one thing an insurance agent told me is your insurance policy is for big disasters. And so that's the reason we have insurance. It's for when you have a house flood, when you have a fire, when several rooms are affected, a roof, maybe something like that. But the, dishwasher overflow or washing machine overflow that maybe we had one recently, went down to a garage, could be, a couple $1,000s, and doesn't make sense to file a claim for that. But when you get up to that, like the toilet that overflowed ended up being, once you add the remodel back on it, the mitigation might only be, under 10, but once you add the remodel, as you know, it can add quickly. And so then it makes sense to call your carrier and start that claim process so that you're minimal out of pocket.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of thinking about the deductible, I believe ours was 2% for the roof, and the hurricane deductibles, I think, is like 5% or something like that. So that's crazy. That is so, I didn't realize all that stuff. I kind of let my wife do that, and then she told me that. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did we move here? But anyway, it is what it is. But I guess the point is everyone really should be prepared and know what all that stuff is.
Right.
So when something does happen, do they call the insurance first? Do they call you first? How does that work?
If you call your insurance, I would call the agent. And the agent can help you interpret your coverage, know what your policy states, and know if this is something that you should start a claim or if you should wait. And so I waited. So I just, like I mentioned, I had the supply line leak in my bathroom, and having working for a restoration company, I know that this can range from, a few $1,000s to a whole bathroom remodel, which is what it ended up being. But I went ahead and waited, but I did let my agent know of the damage and of the loss. And so I sent him a photo. I said, hey, we've had a supply line break. I have the plumber coming. I have the restoration company coming to start the mitigation process. But we are going to wait to file a claim until we really kind of get in there, because that's the thing about restoration. You don't know how big of an issue it is until you really get in there. So what I could see was water was behind a vanity. What I didn't know was water was behind 2 vanities, the bathtub, and the walls, and all of that. And so, and it wasn't until we got the tub out and we got, some of those other things. And so that's when it was like, oh, okay, we're filing a claim.
It's a big job.
This is a bigger job than just a small little drying out. But what was great was when I was talking with my claims adjuster, and they said, well, you waited 2 weeks to file a claim, and you didn't let your agent know. And I said, oh, no, I did. My agent was able to send a screenshot of our text message. So always do it in writing also, that I did let him know. So letting your agent know is helpful. But first of all, you want to get the water up and you want to address the water. So most policies will state that the policy holder is responsible for mitigating further damage. And so that means getting a restoration company out there to at least do a site assessment. So one thing that we do is an initial site visit. We'll come out. So if a client calls us, whether that referral came from an insurance agent, a plumber, a construction company, a remodeler, whoever, we'll come out. We'll get our moisture readings. We'll use our thermal cameras and everything to kind of see how far the water has traveled, or goes to the least path of resistance. And so we'll kind of see how much is what, to be able to give a rough idea of, okay, these walls are coming out, this flooring has to come out, we're going to be drying for a certain number of days. You're going to be looking at a really small job that'll be done fast, or you're going to be looking at a larger job here. And so you can go ahead and talk to your insurance company and get that information.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's to have that conversation with your agent and throw scenarios at them. For example, I worked a job where a car had crashed into a house. It was weird. Like within a month, there was 3 calls where cars crashed into a house.
We've had some.
Yeah, right. It's like, is this a thing?
Yeah.
But anyway, so it happened late at night on a weekend. So obviously the insurance agent's not going to be awake, or maybe they're out of town or whatever it might be, so what do? You got to get boarded up. You have to secure the house. You got to make sure the elements are not coming in the house, or, it's not open to the public or whatever. So people have that conversation with your agent, but if not, don't wait around. Like what you're saying, you got to mitigate further damage. So they could call 24/7 restoration and get board up and secure it for now until we do a further investigation or whatever to see what we need to do going forward.
Yeah, and perfect example of that was a B&I referral actually from an insurance agent. The storms we had in spring back, I think last April, where lots of lightning, hail, tree had fallen on the roof. And this older gentleman is like, water is pouring into my master bedroom. And so it's 10 p.m. and I get a phone call from an insurance agent. I'm like, okay, we're meeting tomorrow, but you're calling at 10. And he's like, hey, I have a client, tree fell on the roof. Can you guys get out there? And so we got out there. I think it was like 11:30 p.m. And so we got that. Thankfully, the tree had rolled off the roof. So the tree was removed because it's going on a roof during a lightning storm.
Really.
But we were able to get the roof tarped. We were able to start mitigating the damage inside the home. And and then he called his claims department on Monday. Now the restoration part of it was real easy. It was fast. It was done very quickly with minimal damage because we got out there immediately. We, stopped the water from coming in. We got up in the attic. We did all of that. We were able to stop the water from coming in. We were able to stabilize the environment because humidity control is one of the biggest things when you have a water damage situation, so that you don't have microbial growth beginning to grow. Because that's one of the things. If you wait, we have photos we just recently posted on our social media of a client who's like, let me talk to my insurance company. Let me just kind of get an adjuster out here. And okay, that's fine. But we have our picture, and then 4 days later, how much microbial growth was in that room.
Oh, yeah.
Because the environment wasn't stabilized.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. In Houston, you need to take care of that for sure. Yeah. So what if a scenario where somebody, they already have, my brother's a contractor. I want him to do my work, but he doesn't, check moisture. He doesn't mitigate. He doesn't do all that stuff. How could they still work with their favorite contractor, but also get that mitigation work done? Could they work with you all on that?
Absolutely. And the one I just mentioned about the tree that fell on the roof, it was actually a roofer that we also knew.
Oh.
And the insurance agent even told us he already has a roofer who also does rebuild. And we see that often.
Okay.
That roofers do construction as well. And we said, absolutely. And so we went in, we cut the sheetrock, we set the drying equipment, we, put a tarp on or kind of stopped the water damage from getting further. And then we did all of our documentation. And then we passed it off to the roofer, even met the roofer construction contractor on site, said this is what we did. And then they were able to do the roof, to do the drywall, the sheetrock, the paint, the put back in the bedroom. And then that also, sometimes people are like, hey, I already got half my wall taken off. But I've been wanting to change the paint, or I've been wanting to, do a little bit of a remodel. And people can kind of make that decision. So sometimes it sets it up well for a construction contractor because they're able to then say, okay, insurance is going to cover this putback part of it and replace what you had. But if you have a budget that you want to discuss, then we can talk about some of your hopes and dreams.
So for contractors out there that don't have your services, like for example, we don't, right? Elevation does not. If someone were to call me, you and I already had this discussion before that. If someone were to call me and they had a water leak or something and it's not dried out yet, I would just call you guys. You'd come dry it out, and then we'd come in afterwards and do the work. So if you're a contractor happening to listen to this, you could work with 24/7 restoration. They'll work with you on that, and they'll dry it up for you. Get it prepared for the reconstruction part of it. But if you don't have any of those skills, they can do all of that for sure.
Right.
All right. Helpful tips for homeowners as they navigate through an insurance claim.
Be careful what you say.
Okay.
So just a couple of things that have hurt clients in the past is supply line to a refrigerator. I mean, we're talking kitchen, living room floors, wet, cabinets, all of that. And saying, I don't know how long this has been happening. No, don't say that. Just because if there's something called sudden and accidental, which is most often covered in your policy. Then there is leakage and seepage, which is not always covered in your policy. So if you say, I don't know how long this has been happening, a carrier, in this case for this client, the claim was denied. Because she didn't have a leakage and seepage endorsement, which prompted me to add it to my policy that next month. But and not all carriers are offering it sometimes. The other 4-letter word we don't say is mold. And so mold has to be tested in order to be called mold. So a lot of times in your policy, it'll say fungus, it'll say microbial growth, and we like to say secondary damage. And so in my case, the reason I knew I had a water damage issue is because I saw black fuzzy stuff under my husband's vanity and thought, that shouldn't be there. That means there's moisture somewhere. And it wasn't until I had, one of the managers from 24/7 come out, and he took off that access panel from the vanity that went to the tub and turned on the water, and water is spraying out. That he goes, well, found the problem. And that little supply line that's connected from the faucet was just spraying water all behind the tub, all behind the vanity. And so when I called and put in the claim, I had a water damage claim. I did not have I did not say mold. I did not say microbial growth, because many times there are very limited coverages when it deals with that. However, the black fuzzy stuff was secondary damage as a result of water. And so it's just really important to saying less is more, kind of a thing, and not, and even my adjuster even called the plumbing company and said, well, did she have a bunch of mold? And he said, I'm a plumber. She had a pipe break. I'm not a mold inspector. She had a pipe break. Funny. And they try to catch you on some of that so that they can lower their risk and lower how much they're having to pay out. And so, that's their job. They're, as we know, the insurance industry is kind of in a tough spot right now. We've had so many natural disasters. We've had many insurance companies not provide coverage in certain states. So they're going to look for where some of those loopholes or where they can, minimize what they're having to cover.
Wow, that's interesting. That's a great story. Aside from watching what they say, what are common mistakes that homeowners make when working on an insurance claim?
Not reviewing the documentation carefully. And so that's where it's important to have a restoration company or a contractor who can look back at it and say, they left some things out. And so, for example, and what we've seen that's pretty typical is we will submit our scope of the work that's been done, whether that is mitigation or rebuild. And the insurance company will come back with their scope. Sometimes they'll even use a third party whose job is to cut the scope of work. And for example, on mine, because I can speak to that, they had 4 linear feet of vanity. And I'm like, that's interesting because I have a 6-foot vanity and a 5.5-foot vanity. And last time I did math, that didn't add up to 4. Or they had 1 linear foot of mirror. And I had 2 giant mirrors taken down. And so I'm like, wow, and they had replaced bathtub faucet, but they left out the bathtub. So you can see right there how we are several thousand off on what I submitted for reimbursement or to be indemnified for it, and what they said that they were going to pay for. So that's one of the things is people get that scope of work back from the adjuster, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is half of what it costs to rebuild this space, this living room, kitchen, bathroom. And it's really important for whether it's the contractor or the restoration company to, advocate for the homeowner and say, no. Exactly. You missed the shower or you missed the bathtub. There's $6,500 missing out of this scope because of this and this. So that's one thing. And another mistake is, I was going to mention, I just forgot it. But so I would say that's the biggest thing. It's just, don't just take what they send you back. They're going to try to minimize the scope. And what I would say to contractors that are listening is you are the expert. The adjuster is not a builder. The adjuster is not a restoration company. And so be that expert for your client and tell them, no, this is not right. And you deserve to be paid for the full amount of the rebuild.
Exactly.
That is. I did remember the other thing I was going to say is sometime what we have found is for clients to pay the invoice that you provide for work that has been done. So if that's mitigation, if they pay that mitigation invoice, many times they are reimbursed for the work that's been performed. If it's just a scope of work or an estimate, the insurance company sees that as negotiable. And so, so sometimes if you're like, we're just going to start work, that we have a contract with the property owner saying that they're going to pay for our work. And if they just pay it and then submit for reimbursement, it goes a lot smoother.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good information. One thing I learned is there's a lot of good adjusters out there. Yeah. But there's also some that maybe they're new. Maybe they just, maybe they're not happy with what they do. Yeah. And so I had a job where this is one of the jobs where the car ran into the house. and one of the windows was busted. And this house was built in, I think, in the 70s. So they don't make the same window anymore. So the scope, or what was approved, was just that one window in the front elevation. And so the homeowner, understandably, was unhappy. He said, hey, I got one window that looks like this and the rest look like that. I'm like, I know. And I was trying to figure this out, trying to work with the adjuster. Hey, can we get new windows? And she would not budge. Luckily, the homeowner knew the policy better than the adjuster.
Yeah.
He went into the policy, took a snapshot, and said, hey, you guys are supposed to give me new windows because of this. So within like 10 minutes, okay, you can get brand new windows.
Yep.
So, just to kind of like support what you were just saying, don't always take the final, like the adjuster is not the final word.
Right.
You know your policy, work with a company like 24/7 Restoration who knows how to work with insurance companies and work on your behalf. That way the job is done correctly and you're not even more frustrated because you're not getting the job done right. So that can be frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier of like change orders, right? So, they take advantage of the opportunity of, well, there's two scenarios here. One is you're doing the work and then, oh gosh, we found some more damage from this incident. So let's kind of focus on that. Like how is that handled? And do you work with the adjuster to get that approved? How's that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we submit a supplement. And so that happens often. We actually don't, when it comes to the mitigation part of it and cleaning up the damage, we don't provide a written estimate. We provide a scope of work performed. And so, we tell people, we don't know how much is going to be behind these walls. Now, that's communicated with the client all along the way. So in my case, we thought we just had to remove one vanity. Turns out that once we got in, had that vanity removed, we found more water. And you have to keep going until 2 feet beyond. And so that's kind of the standard. So then it was that was the thing of, they asked me, are you okay if we take out the tub? And I knew that would increase the cost of mitigation significantly. And I said, yeah, I don't want microbial growth growing behind my tub and create more damage later on when I have the opportunity to fix it now. And so, it's just a supplement. And then with the rebuild, like you said, cabinets are hard to match. Windows are not made. It's funny. My home was built by Lennar 9 years ago. I'm like, surely these cabinets are still around. That cabinet maker is out of business. And so, so that means I'm changing my medicine cabinet doors, even though they weren't affected. They need to match the vanity on the ones that are on the wall. And so some of those things we can put together, an initial scope. But as we keep going, then we add supplements or we add edits to that. And that can be communicated to the adjuster. Or sometimes an adjuster wants to come on site, especially if it's an exterior wall or a really large change order that needs to happen. They want to come on site and just verify, take their own measurements, and things like that.
Okay. And what about the scenario where a homeowner, let's just say they have a fiberglass shower surround and, that was affected. And they're like, you know what, let's just do tile. Obviously, insurance is not going to cover the tile. So how would you work with the homeowner on that scenario? Yeah,
so the great thing is we use a program called Exactimate, and that is also used by the insurance carriers. And so what we put in Exactimate is to replace what you had. And so whether that's the type of flooring, and I had, tile, the size of tiles I had, they were done in a diagonal or, kind of that chevron pattern. That's even an additional thing. So the insurance company will pay to put your property back to pre-loss condition. So that gives you kind of that budget or that amount
Yep.
that is going to be in the scope of work that you have to work with. And so even for myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't loved how this shower has been set up, or I want to do, I want to upgrade my tile, things like that. Then I know I have, say, $6,500 to work with for my shower. And if I pick materials that still fall in with that range with, the cost of demo and build back, then I'm good. That's covered. But if I pick materials or, redesign things and it goes above that, then that's my out of pocket.
Sure. Okay. And then is that, I guess there's paperwork or something to kind of differentiate what is a change order that the homeowner is going to cover and what the insurance is going to cover.
You actually don't have to. They take that scope, and they approve those line items and they approve those amounts. And then you don't have to submit receipts for or detailed things afterwards. They just cut you a check. And then, you have to build back or put the,
of course.
And I even talked to my agent about this. I go, what if I decide not to change the shower? Because for mine, the shower wasn't affected, but the tile floor was. That was it. And he said, that's fine. But if you ever later on have a water leak or something happen in your shower, then State Farm's going to say, no, we paid to replace the shower 2 years ago. We're not paying.
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of run into that if you don't follow through on what you're doing. And some insurance companies do want proof that the work is being done, so they will opt to pay the contractor directly. Okay,
that makes sense. Okay, so it's not as difficult as I was making it out to be.
No.
To get it done.
No, you have a lot of wiggle room. I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah.
So if you want to upgrade your cabinets, or say you had premium cabinets before, but the line item pricing is only for your standard grade of cabinets, then you can still get those premium cabinets. There just might be a price differential.
Okay. Excellent. Well, we covered a lot today. I think a lot more than what the average person knows about insurance work and stuff. Is there anything else that we hit on that you think is important we should address?
I think it's good. I mean, the biggest thing is, meeting your contractor, meeting your restoration company, and being comfortable with them and trust, because it's a emotional roller coaster. You know that with rebuild. I mean, it's just kind of, we're going to start here and then we're going to run into some things that are going to be frustrating. And so just for that communication and follow up to be clear with the client is important so that they have the right expectations. One thing we didn't cover that's also part of insurance is contents. And so, so for example, hot water heater busted in an attic, soaked. I mean, kitchen, living room, dining room, everything is affected, floors, walls, all that's going to be done. We also engage a contents company, and that will come and they will document all unsalvageable items. So that might be a couch that got really wet, artwork that got really wet, and they will do all of that documentation, and they will also pack up and store your items for you until the rebuild is complete. And that is most often part of your insurance policy.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, cool. That's great that you have that partnership.
Yes.
For those in the greater Houston area, how can they learn more about 24/7 restoration? And do you guys cover like even all the way down to Galveston? Like what's your coverage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, good. The greater Houston area. We've gone out even as Somerville to serve a client that didn't really have a great option for a restoration contractor, and when she had a whole house flood. We did a really, really interesting mold situation in Galveston. As you know, mold is a huge problem there. We actually dry ice blasted this 6,000 square foot home to remove that mold that was found there. But yes, so we will go, all the way out to Sealy, Galveston, Conroe, Woodlands. And so we're centrally located in the Spring Branch, Memorial City area. So we can get to most anywhere within a couple hours of that phone call coming. The best way to find out more about us is to go to our website, which is restorationspecialist.com. And that has our phone number, has a way to contact us and find out a little information. But making that phone call immediately, saving that number in your phone, or if you're a contractor, save that phone number in your phone so that you have something to send to your client when you're on site.
Absolutely. Well, Gina, thank you so much for taking the time today. I think this is a very important topic, mainly because, well, I've been through it last year and I'm like, crap, I'm a contractor and I'm not really following what I'm saying here. So I thought this would be a great episode to educate the public and to help people out when they're doing their research. So thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. And maybe we can have you on again about a different topic in construction. Excellent. Well, thank you. Yeah. And thank you all for joining us today, and be sure to share this with a friend. I mean, everyone needs to know about this stuff. Even if they're not planning a remodel, something could happen. This is great education. So share this with your friends, with your Facebook friends, LinkedIn, or whatever. And be sure to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Thanks a lot.